Before getting to a koan, which, if we get to it, will be number 12 from the Mumonkan, entitled Zuigan Calls Master. There are quite a number of things that I would like to talk about, partly due to what has been gelling during this past week. First of all, let me say something about the function of this teaching and this teacher, if we can use these words without immediately connecting them up with conventional notions about teacher and teaching. Let us talk about what the function of this teaching or this teacher is and what it is not. As I see it, this teaching is not trying to establish any authority whatsoever. The words that are being said are not said so that they can be remembered in a way that we memorize things and then follow, without really having understood what they point at directly. There's nothing in this to be taken over. There's nothing in this work of a teacher to be worshipped, adored, paid homage to, or whatever. Words are not being said to convince you, to persuade you, to encourage you, or to discourage you from doing things. This is all up to you. The function of this work, as I see it, is for words to come out of the clarity of seeing something directly, and then trying to put it into words so that you can see too. To see something together, to see through it together. To see something through together, or to think something through together, to work on something together. Without establishing authority. Has no place in this. Because then one becomes a follower. Without understanding, which is the danger that is facing all of us throughout this whole world. In order for this work to take place, and not tomorrow or in the next session, but right now, right in this teisho, there has to be this open listening that we speak so much about. Not just open listening, but open talking. There being openness between us, which means an absence, and if only a temporary absence, of resistance. Not immediately trying to refer what you hear to what you already know, what you have established as your opinion, idea, conviction, to temporarily suspend all of that. Or else this will be in between. Do you see that? it'll come in between, and we can't really communicate. Whatever is being said is freely open to challenge, to questioning, and we have question periods there, if I'm correct. The calendar this week provides for a question period on Thursday. Or you can come up and see me personally. But it's good to bring it up in a question period where many people can partake, can work together on this whole thing, of starting over from scratch and looking at this thing again that has been unclear, confusing, or discouraging, whatever way. So this listening in all openness and working together. There's work going on right here on this cushion. Can it take place everywhere? Which means an opinion comes up, it must be seen and temporarily laid aside. Or else one is occupied with the opinion, with the idea, the memory, and what is being said passes by unheard, unattended to. Last Wednesday, there was a small meeting here in this Zendo in which a film was showed, Canadian film. The title was If You Love This Planet. Many of you may have seen it in different places. It was narrated by Dr. Caldecott, talking about the facts of nuclear stockpiling, nuclear potential explosions, the size of them, the danger of them, and then interspersed in the talk were scenes taken from what happened in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, whatever the name is. Pictures of burned babies, women, men, maimed, deformed. And then this passionate plea to do something about this. Not to turn away from this incredible danger that is facing us, nuclear holocaust, to do something. And if I remember correctly, it was the first time I saw this movie. What was suggested was to join in, I think it was an appeal directly to Americans. The talk was given in this country, or was it given in Canada? I don't know. It was often referenced to Americans. Maybe in this case, grouping Canadians and Americans into one group. To use the political avenue, because in the political circles, the decisions are being made of producing more weapons and so forth. And then afterwards there ensued a discussion led by Casey about this movement, this peace movement, or the movement to effect a nuclear freeze. People were talking. I said several things. And at one point, one person said, "You seem to be discouraging our participating in movements of this kind." It's happened in the past. I'm not quoting verbatim, but that was the feeling that I got from the questioner. A person also called on the telephone later on about why is it, or is it a fact that she's discouraging us from participating in these things? When she says something, it seems to have a negative effect on my wanting to participate. Something to this effect was said by one person. this may be the effect of what is being said, but then what is discouragement that one feels oneself without immediately saying, this person has discouraged me? What is discouragement? One doesn't know really what to do. One would like to do this. One thinks one ought to do something. And then somebody else whom one respects as an authority seems to say, don't do that. And then I'm in a dilemma. I want to do it, and I may do it. I'm not really quite sure whether I should or not. But let me ask this person. And this person doesn't give a definitive answer. And that's discouraging. If you come here and open this question up, we'll look at it together. We'll go through it time and time again. This is this work. But for you just to try to listen, what is she saying? Is she encouraging or discouraging? And then base your action on what you think I'm saying. That is just confused action coming out of confusion and perpetuating confusion. Because you don't see clearly for yourself what needs to be done this instant. Again, let me reiterate, I'm not trying to influence you to do one thing or the other, but to work directly with you, to look and see what it is that moves us so mechanically, so automatically, and what prevents clear seeing and clear thinking and clear, unequivocal action. One thing that the movie showed at one point was a whole set of computers with buttons. Then an airplane was shown which referred to a thing that happened several months ago, that almost a plane was mistaken. I may not get this all correctly. Some mistake was almost made, and almost a button was pushed to set off our nuclear warheads aimed at Russia, which would have been the beginning of the end. This was shown and talked about very clearly by Dr. Caldecott. And yet, the action that is being proposed and urged is an action that has a future effect. Let's get the freeze first. I'm not talking about a specific issue, but about what is going on in this planning for action. It is planning for the future, to get a freeze in the future, to get more reduction of stockpiles in the future. And I don't think it was ever mentioned the possibility of the riddance of all of that stuff. It was only talked about America and Russia. Nothing was mentioned about all these other countries who are beginning to stockpile, beginning to build, and will have this bomb shortly, and are not even in this whole treaty business. A future action is being planned. And it was also pointed out, and has been pointed out, that people who do not participate or take part in this action for the freeze or whatever is planned for the future, that they are apathetic toward the problem, that they are denying it or turning away from the danger that is facing all of us, which is a false connection to make. One may not participate in something we'll come to that later, and yet not be apathetic toward the danger that faces one. not turning away from that one hair's breadth, and yet not participate in a proposed future action or action with future effects and results? What happens, if I can insert this right here, what happens in the meantime until this freeze is effected, until the stockpiles are reduced? Weapons are being produced. Scientists, researchers are working the world over on new weapons. Maybe some of them to evade this whole nuclear issue and do something more effective with less controversy. We don't know. I'm speculating here. But it's a fact that in the meantime, the same thing is going on, that has been going on. Nothing has been terminated. I heard a discussion of scientists once in which it was mentioned that high school students now have the capability of building a small atom bomb. The know-how, at least, it's possible. So, the danger is this instant, because someone can push this button right now. It may have already been pushed. How do we face that? Do we? Or do we turn our backs on that? On the danger of instant, imminent death? The possibility of death right this moment. And is there freedom from fear in facing that? Or does one need to face the fear of that? Or else all other action will be compelled, influenced, and guided by that fear. And therefore be partial action, not total action. Whether you join a political action, committee or movement, whatever, or not, are you clear, or are you looking into your motives for doing so? Do they become clear in the looking? Is there fear? Is there wanting to do something for fear of doing nothing? And what is one afraid of? As was mentioned in this talk, the most effective way to arouse people is to speak of a bomb being hitting Kodak or in the middle of Rochester, which appeals to your local, personal fear. And yet this matter concerns all humankind. Not that the person who was showing the movie or Dr. Calicut is not aware of that. I'm not saying that. But then why appeal to your locality? To your country, to your family, your city, your community, your country. Isn't that, and this was pointed out that evening too, isn't this sticking with one's nationalism, isn't that at the base of all this arming, threatening each other? 2 different countries, or 5 or 10 different countries threatening each other with armament. If there was no such thing as sovereign nationalities, this would not come up. And in bringing this point up this time and another time in the past when a similar thing was going on at the center, in mentioning the danger, the incredible danger of nationalism, both times it was said that is a ticklish issue, unpalatable to the people. So are we going by what is palatable? Are we going by what it needs to be looked at and uprooted, seen through, dropped? And is one ready to do that? To drop one's attachment to one's flag, one's country's history, one's national pride, which can be very gross and can be very, very subtle. And the fear that comes up of being really nobody. And because that fear is there in the first place, we do attach ourselves to our localities and tribes and countries and nations and ask for protection from them, to protect us. Which the outcome of which is armament, which always moves along with scientific progress, research, new discoveries, which always are exploited for weaponry. So in this imminent facing of death, destruction, and the fear of that, is one free to die to all one's attachments, to what one identifies with? What gives one a false sense of security? A destructive sense of security, because what one takes security in is the very thing that causes invention, production, and use of arms. What is peace? Isn't it above all else the absence of fear? Fear of others, what they may do to one. Fear of dying. And not just the physical death. In one way or other, it's faced when it's right there. But there's much more deep-seated fear of dying to one's identifications, one's associations. The image of oneself wanting to continue as somebody recognizable, respected, interesting, whatever. Wanting to continue as somebody. Can that be faced? Or does one recoil from that? Fear of dying to all images, all attachments which give one security. A false sense of security. Because nothing that one is identified with has any permanent life to it. And it's dangerous, as in the case of nationalism. So we're all concerned with what really is responsible action. Responsible action. This is what is being appealed to in us. Talked to 2 persons during the week who mentioned their dilemma in the face of all the pressure that is upon them to act responsibly as a citizen, as an American, as a whatever. We feel guilty that we're not really doing our duty. And this guilt is being exploited, appealed to get action out of us. And no one really knows what is responsible action. One person said, I really know I ought to vote. I ought to contribute to this movement somehow or other. I have never really thought it through. I can't really think it through, so I forget about it. And yet then there's this nagging feeling I ought to act responsibly. Responsibility to whom and for what? Coming out of what? Out of your conditioned thinking? To an entity that is also conditioned and conditioning, like this country? Is your responsibility to this country? If you vote, whoever you vote for, and I'm not discouraging you from voting, is ultimately feeling responsible to this country first, America first, and then the world. If we can regress for a moment, last week in Teisho we talked about this question that comes up so often: how can I forgive myself for what I've done in the past? And we talked at length about this. What is the past? What is this forgiving? And who forgives whom? Who is this I that forgives what? The past action, which is now memory. We went into this at great breadth and depth. There's Teisho available to listen to. We never really got to the point of saying, how can I act now so I don't repeat that over and over and over again? This is really the crucial question, not how can I forgive myself for what I've done in the past. That's gone and finished, even though it may haunt you. But what's going to prevent me from doing the same thing right now again? What's going to prevent us from continuing in the same pattern before, during, and after the freeze? Or partial disarmament? Or total disarmament for that matter? Which no one is proposing, I don't think. Probably not palatable. Can you see that action needs to come out of the clarity of this instant, not out of the memory of the past? And not out of fear of what may happen in the future? And can this clarity come about as long as there is one's partial attachments to this and that will shade it, that will influence it? It will reduce the field to a narrow segment of the pie. So what is freedom from this me, one's memories, one's all conditioned actions, habitual, automatic responses. So there is one instant of responsible action. One could say, well, you're talking utopia is impossible, and let's just start with where we are. This is exactly where we need to start. Where we are right now, and seeing what's all there, all the obstacles, the attachments, the opinions, identifications. Can it be seen and drop in the seeing? So there's freedom from that. You can say, well, this is easier said than done. That's true. Who is the doer? Can you hunt him down? See it all come into awareness. I want to do something to feel less guilty, to be contributing something, so people won't forever tell me I'm apathetic. So I'm going to do some action which is tangible. People can see it, I can point to it, and they'll leave me alone. I'll feel a little bit better about myself. I'm not saying that this is what motivates you, but is it there? You have to see it, look at it, in freedom. Not immediately say, I'm engaged in a worthy cause that already prevents all examining of it, all questioning of it. Responsible means to respond. To what? To whom? Let us move on to this koan. Zuigan calls master, taken from comments on the Mumonkan by Zenkai Shibayama. And the koan reads as follows. Every day, Master Zuigan used to call out to himself, "Oh, Master!" And he would answer himself, "Yes?" "Are you awake?" he would ask and would answer, "Yes, I am." Never be deceived by others, any day, any time. No, I won't, I will not. In another version it says, Zuigan always called out to himself, "Master, yes. See clearly, yes, yes. And don't be deceived by others. No, I won't." Let me take time out to read you at the end of this Mumonkan, which is a collection of koans, Zen dialogues between teachers and teachers and teachers and monks and monks and monks. At the end of this collection of koans, Mumon, who was the collector of these koans in the 11th or 10th century, has some warnings about Zen work And this is what he says. To observe the regulations and keep to the rules is tying oneself without a rope. To act freely and unrestrainedly just as one wishes is to do what heretics and demons would do. I'm skipping over to someone else's translation, Sekida's. Selfish neglect of your surroundings is falling into a deep pit. To recognize mind and purify it is the false zen of silent sitting. Perfectionist watchfulness is to wear chains and an iron yoke. To think of good and evil belongs to heaven and hell. I'm always jumping back and forth between two translations, the other one being by Sekida. Addiction to Buddha and Dharma invites banishment beyond the two iron mountains, some kind of a horrible punishment. I don't want to go into the legend of that. He who realizes it as soon as a thought arises is one who exhausts his energy. Another translation here is, alternately daydreaming and awakening is playing with your own spirit. To sit blankly in quietism is the practice of the dead. If one proceeds, one will go astray from the principle. If one retreats, one will be against the truth. If one neither progresses nor retreats, one is a dead man breathing. Now tell me, what will you do? Work hard and be sure to attain it. In this life, lest you have eternal regret. Well, we can leave the eternal regret out. What are you going to do? We just read about this master. Hey, be awake. See clearly. Yes. Don't be deceived. Don't deceive. I will not. I won't. Mumon's commentary on this koan is, old Zuigan himself sells and himself buys. He's got a lot of masks of goblins and demons to play with. Why? Nay, a calling one, an answering one, an awake one, and one who will not be deceived by others. If you take these different appearances as really existing, you're altogether mistaken. If, however, you just imitate Zuigan, your understanding is that of a fox. Meaning just that, imitating, following, taking him for an authority. From now on, every morning saying, hey there, wake up. Yes, I will. And so forth. And the poem says, those who search for the way do not realize the truth. They only know their old, discriminating consciousness. This is the cause of the endless cycle of birth and death. Yet ignorant people take it for the original man, or for truth. I don't know if one says to oneself, wake up, or one says to oneself, does this life, the way I've been leading it have to continue and continue and continue like this? Am I completely caught? Already the fact that you can ask a question like this shows you're not. Or else you couldn't ask that. And then to look, with a burning urgency to look what's happening this instant. And if this burning urgency is there because you see what's going on in the world, which is the result of all our actions of the past. That's what the world right now is, the result of all of our actions through thousands and thousands of years. And if this inquiry, this questioning burns, then attention will be there, because one has to look. You can't go by what you believe somebody said, because that person may be wrong, or you may have misunderstood. You haven't seen for yourself. So hearing things pointed out, can one verify them? Verify meaning to make true. To make true in oneself. To see in oneself the obstacles, the division, the fear, the beliefs, the urge for action to get away from this all. And just look and see and question and not know. Knowing is your opinions. Not knowing is no opinions. In touch with what's really there. Directly this instant. Be awake. Awaken to what? To nothing. But not the idea of it. Because whatever there is, maybe turmoil, pain, tension, stress, what is it when there's no word for it, no explanation, no escape, absolutely no escape? Then what is it? What is it? No word will do. No reaction. You don't know. You can only react to something you know. But if you don't know, then what can you do? So I'm immediately trying to establish something again, a space platform, where one is something, knows something, can look forward to something or look backward in fond memories. Zuigan says, see clearly or be awake. And then he says, and don't be deceived by others. And take anybody's word, anybody's personality, charisma, status in the church, in the organization, because that blinds. See for yourself. Look at this person yourself. without any images of him or her being this or that. A teacher, a priest, a president, a sage. If you have this image, then the words are already very tempting to take over, to be influenced by, and to follow. Just look at these others, the people around you. One person told me last week that for years he had been looking at someone who was his boss, full of fear, not even looking at him, just there being this fear and this idea of who this person was. And with that, the total absence of relationship. And then one day he just looked at this person who was sort of standing over him, as it were. And he saw he was afraid, just like himself. And maybe for the first time there was a relationship between two human beings, maybe just one-sided. The boss may not have seen, he may have only seen the subordinate, or whatever that position there is, the servant or whatever, and therefore not see the person. Actually, the word person comes from persona, and that means a mask that in these Greek plays, the players used to wear these big masks expressing a state of mind. So the actor didn't have to express, he just put on this mask. So is one without any masks? Or does one see through the mask that others put on out of fear, out of habit, out of training, drilling, and conditioning, and not take it so seriously? See through it, and there's a human being, another one just like you. Not, I can see through you. Then you don't see what's going on in yourself, wanting to be in control and seeing through other people. It's none of that. It's seeing both ways, inside and out, and there being no difference. Then who are these others? Almost all the time we think in terms of them, the others, those people. Can we detect it in our talking first, in our way of speaking? And then look, just take a look at what's taking place. Mumon here in the commentary goes into whether there is a calling one and an answering one, an admonishing one and an obedient one. When you say, hey, wake up, I will. Who's calling? Who's answering? Who's seeing? And who's acting? Are these all different, separate entities within one? Who am I when there are no goblins, masks, demons. Who am I when I have no image of myself? No identification with anything or anyone. Where does that leave me? In fear? What is that? Face it. The poem says, those who search for the way do not realize truth. They only know their own discriminating consciousness. Searching, wanting, having a goal. The whole method of trying to attain with a goal in mind is all comes out of memory. Here he says, discriminating consciousness. There's one consciousness filled with memory. That's what the consciousness is. And all the thoughts that go in and out. It's always within it, really. This is the cause of endless cycle of birth and death. So if we want to do something that's entirely new, not just a continuation of the old thing in a new form, what is that? Is it possible for something entirely new to happen, to come into being, which is not the continuation of the old cycle? Is that something you think may happen in the future and you're going to work toward it? Then what's all going to happen in the meantime? Continuation of the old stuff. So one must start here, right now, this instant. Being awake. Not to be deceived by others who are no other than yourself. If you say, I don't want to do that, then don't. It's up to you. It's neither right nor wrong. What is it? We will end here for today.